Jaime Lannister. He was the villain until this scene changed everything. Check this out, right? I believe that Jaime Lannister is one of the most misunderstood characters out there until his redemption arc in the later seasons. So imagine this, right? You're a little boy and all you ever wanted was to swing your sword and bang your sister. I know, not a good look. The things we do for love. Check this out. His story began when he was young. He had trouble learning. He was dyslexic. I think that was the main theory about it. But his father forced him into it. But when his real talent actually lies with his sword skills. He plays with a sword and then he falls in love with his sister. And people found out, and of course, Tywin being Tywin did his best to separate the two in order to prevent further scandal. So, being what you are, good at sword fighting and completely in love with your sister, you do the most logical thing. You follow her to King's Landing. And in order to be close with the woman you love, what do? You join the King's Guard. Your sister set to marry a Targaryen back then. But the problem is the Targaryen daddy was simply, well, mad, downright psychotic. Didn't have a choice. You wanted to be close. But the problem is your dad and the Targaryen Mad King had a falling out. And well, guess what? Pulls your sister out, your reason for being in the King's Guard. This is going to be important, right? His reason for staying in the King's Guard is gone. But bound by honor, bound by contract, he was forced to stay in the King's Guard, despite the fact that his main reason for being there went back to Casterly Rock. And then, of course, the Mad King decides to burn some Starks, and the war begins. The war culminates, and your family didn't declare for anyone until the last minute. So, you're still there guarding the Mad King, who simply declared, burn them all. Without any reason. Remember, he literally had no more reason to stay, and all he could do now is at least try to be a good person. But coincidentally, your dad is at the gates with his army. Here's the reason, right? Here's the thing. That's why he's so misunderstood. Everyone thought he killed the king because in order to support his family, but up until the last minute, he didn't know. He had no way of knowing who his father declared for. Was his father there to declare for the Mad King? Was his father there to declare for the rebellion? He didn't know. All he knew back then, during that particular point in time, was that the Mad King wanted to burn down the city. So he does the most logical thing. He does the simplest thing. He stops the Mad King from giving out that order by stabbing him in the back or the belly, whichever. Right? And here's the bad news. Right after you killed your boss, like your one job, after you failed that, one of the worst men to actually witness the whole thing or to actually find you after the whole thing goes down literally arrives. Who happened to be Ned Stark, the man with the biggest stick up his ass about honor. Imagine that. According to the book, one of the reasons why Ned Stark doesn't trust Jaime Lannister is because when he reached the throne room, he saw Jaime Lannister sitting on the throne. I'm not really sure how that's possible because the throne is like, a couple of, like 20 feet high or something. But here's the thing, right? Your life just went down the spiral. You failed. You literally failed on purpose to do your one and only job. You just had to take a seat. And the closest seat at that time just happens to be the throne. And guess what? Like the worst person to see you on that throne just happens to arrive. The man with the biggest stick up his ass about honor. Ned Stark. That whole thing spirals into another rivalry. So guess what, right? You stay in the King's Guard, the rebels win, and now your sister is back at King's Landing with a Baratheon as king. No problem, everything is alright in the world except for one thing. You are now dubbed as the Kingslayer. So guess what? For the next few years, you do your best, or our boy here does his best to try and shake off the mantle of being a Kingslayer and try to basically gain the title of being the #1 swordsman in all of Westeros. He actually makes a good attempt out of it, except for one thing. The #1 swordsman in Westeros, according to everyone, according to recent events, especially during the war, is Ned Stark. We all know what happened, but they don't know that. Ned Stark, despite that giant stick up his ass about honor, he was aware of what having that reputation of killing Arthur Dayne in quote-unquote single combat can do for him and what it can do for the North. So he definitely kept his mouth shut. So imagine that. The entire realm thinks that due to him defeating Sir Arthur Dayne, we've all seen that clip. He is now the #1 swordsman in all of the realm. And then, of course, he goes back to the North and becomes Warden, whereas Jaime Lannister is stuck in King's Landing winning all those tournaments. But guess what? Despite winning all those tournaments, he still can't get that particular title of being the #1 swordsman in all of Westeros for the simple reason that the title holder is stuck in the North as Warden. So despite the fact that he can beat anyone and everyone else, he still can't get that title and he is still dubbed as Kingslayer. So remember, if you guys remember season 1 when they all bumped into each other, Jaime was literally trying to start beef with Ned Stark. He wanted that fight so he could finally get that title. But here's the thing, though. He finally got that fight where they did it in front of Littlefinger's brothel. The problem is, during that particular time, is that one of his men interfered. He was at the grandest stage of them all. People were going to talk about him defeating the #1 swordsman in the realm, Ned Stark. And it just so happened to happen in the best place, which is a brothel. They're going to talk about it. It's going to spread the news. It's going to spread like wildfire. All was going well for him until one of his men decided to interfere in that fight by stabbing Ned Stark at the back of the leg. After that, him getting that clean fight or obtaining the title was gone. That's why he was so angry. That's why he punched the guard in the face after that. Because technically that guard took away his one and only chance of obtaining the title of his #1 swordsman in the realm. That was his only thing. 2 things he was good at, which is, loving his sister, and then #2, being the best swordsman in all of the realm. And you know what? In the end, the whole thing was deprived or was taken away from him. So I guess, apart from the redemption arc, I believe he's one of the most misunderstood characters in, recent media history, I guess. So why don't we check out how this scene changed everything?
Burn them all.
Burn them all. There we go. See?
Burn them in their homes, burn them in their beds.
How come it keeps happening?
Tell me if your precious Randy commanded you to kill your own father and stand by while thousands of men, women, and children burned alive, would you have done it? Would you have kept your oath then?
For 2 whole seasons,
there we go.
Jaime Lannister was the guy we were supposed to hate. He was this arrogant, ruthless man who pushed a kid out a window, slept with his sister, and killed the king he'd sworn to protect. He was the definition of irredeemable. But then, this scene happened, and it changed everything.
Narrative. That's the look seen for 17 years and face after face.
Yeah.
You despise me.
In many ways, the scene is an absolute masterpiece. And honestly, I would even say that it's better than the version in the book. Because in just a 3 minute of monologue, it doesn't just tear down the image of a monster, but it also gives us one of the most
He was a simple man. That's it. He only wanted to do two things. He wanted only two things out of life.
compelling character arcs ever put on screen. And
Yes, he
it does
was.
all of that through this amazing storytelling and performance that you can't help but be drawn into. At this point, I guess you're probably thinking about how Jaime's story ended in the final season, and I get it. But trust me, no matter how the final season played out, it doesn't take away from the brilliance of this scene. If anything, it'll make you even more frustrated about what could have been.
Yeah, what could have been.
So as always, I'll talk about all those things that make this scene a masterpiece in detail, but first, we need some context.
Yep.
This scene takes place right after Jaime loses his hand. It's one of the most vulnerable moments in his life. Because
So
that
everything, you only have one thing going for you at this point, which is, well, your sword skills. You're so far away from Cersei now, the love of your life.
hand wasn't just any hand, it was the one that made
His
him the
sword hand.
Kingslayer. It was the one that gave him both his fame and his shame. Now he's beaten, chained, and humiliated. He finds himself in a place he's never been before. For the first time in his life, he's stripped of everything he relied on and left with nothing but the truth of who he
Yep.
really is. So in such a breaking point, this steaming hot bath
I love
becomes
that shot. Hold on. I love that shot, how he was all alone. That he's all isolated. That he has everything he wants. He's close to Cersei again. He gets to compete, but so close yet so far away.
almost a ritual for Jaime, a kind of purification. If you look closely, you'll see that it's not a coincidence.
I guess that's one way to look at it. It's a purification, you know. Strip away all of the bullshit, and then we see the man. The bullshit being his swordplay. I mean, that's his way of compensating for all his faults. Like, yeah, I failed my one job. Yeah, I'm stooping my sister, but look at me. Look at how well I swing my sword, or look at how well I fight with my sword. Yeah, I like his interpretation.
The scene takes place in a bath. Because here, Jaime isn't just washing off the dirt from his body.
He's
trying to wash
confessing.
away the stain on his reputation. On one hand, there's Brienne. She's
Yeah, the truth shall set you free, and he's trying to set himself free by his confession. But of course, to a layman, to a man like Ned Stark, who held the title, who had that stick of about honor up his ass, they're not going to believe him. No one's ever going to believe him.
stands in a soft light. Even though she's in the bath too, she somehow looks clean, almost glowing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's Jaime. He is completely the opposite. Covered in blood and dirt,
Yeah.
vulnerable in every way.
No longer
And the
his
whole
handsome
scene
self.
has this almost church-like feel to it, with their voices echoing off the walls and the quiet sound of water, as if we are about to witness a baptism.
You heard of wildfire?
Wildfire.
The Mad King was obsessed with it. He loved to watch people burn. He burned lords he didn't like. He burned hands who disobeyed him. He burned anyone who was against him. Before long, half the country was against him.
Right before
Of
Jaime
course.
starts telling the whole story, he looks at his injured wrist for a second, just like he does in the books. It's like the physical wound opens a door to something buried inside him. And that one look,
Who am
that's
I
what
now?
triggers the
There
whole
we
scene.
go. Jaime, Storm of Swords. Everything gone, all stripped away from him.
Meanwhile, Brienne is us, the audience. At first, she doesn't really care, because when
We judge too harshly.
Jaime starts talking about the Mad King and his obsession with wildfire, it just sounds like the same old story. We've heard it before.
Same old
That's why she doesn't
excuse.
look at him. She hears the words, but she's not really listening. Not until that line.
So he had his pyromancer place caches of wildfire all over the city.
Ah.
In that moment,
Finally.
just like Brienne, we really start to listen. And that's when she stops being just another character in the scene and becomes our emotional guide.
A listener.
From then on, every time the camera cuts back to her, we are not just watching her reaction. We're watching our own, reflected right back at us.
Amazing.
But as powerful as Brienne's reactions are, it's Jaime's face that really hits you. Because as he goes deeper into the story, we see this mix of emotions we've
He looks older, he looks wounded, he's laid bare. I mean, one of his best features was his face. He's literally Prince Charming. He's literally the vision of Prince Charming. I mean, if you guys remember Shrek, this is Prince Charming. I mean, compared to his face right now, everything taken away from him, everything that makes Jaime Lannister is gone.
Never seen from him before, especially when he gets to the part about what his father did during the rebellion. This is the first time we get a glimpse of Jaime's heart in conflict with itself.
Finally, the day of reckoning came. Robert Baratheon marched from the capital after his victory at the Trident. But my father arrived first. The whole Lannister army at his back, promising to defend the city against the rebels.
There we go. We didn't know that.
My father better than that.
He didn't
Never
know
been
that.
one to pick the losing side.
At first glance, it may seem like Jaime's giving almost a dry recap without emotion. But then you look at his face and see this deep, quiet pain. The moment he says Tywin was the first to arrive, there's this dark, almost haunted look in his eyes.
So he knew that Tywin would be practical. His father would do the best for what's good for the Lannister.
And later, when he tells Brienne she knows him better than that, you can feel the pain, the shame, and even the disgust, all swirling together in this quiet storm inside him. You see, this is the first time we get to see that maybe he's not the man we have always thought he was. It turns out he has his own moral codes and actually knows what's right and wrong. But that sense of morality is tangled up in a loyalty so complicated that it almost tears him apart. Because as you see, he cannot bring himself to blame his father out loud. That's because doing so would be like blaming a part of himself, a part of his identity.
Yeah.
So when you see it
is a
that
Lannister
way,
after
lashing
all.
out at someone like Pycelle, a relatively safe scapegoat, feels not only human, but also completely in line with who he really is.
I urged him to surrender peacefully. But the king didn't listen to me. He didn't listen to Varys, who tried to warn him. But he did listen to Grand Maester Pycelle. That grey-sunken cunt. You can trust the Lannisters, he said. We opened the gates and my father sacked the city.
Up to this point, the scene builds masterfully, revealing layers of Jaime's character we have never seen before. But it reaches its peak when he finally reveals what the Mad King was planning and what he ordered Jaime to do. And honestly, it's definitely one of the most iconic moments in the entire show.
Once again, I came to the king, begging him to surrender. He told me to bring him my father's head. Then he turned to his pyromancer. Burn them all, he said. Burn them in their homes, burn them in their beds. Tell me if your precious Renly commanded you to kill your own father and stand by while thousands of men, women, and children burned alive, would you have done it?
There we go. Point of judgment.
I mean, what a line. That one question sums up Jaime's impossible dilemma so
There we go.
perfectly.
Do you think the noble lord of Winterfell wanted to hear my feeble explanation? Such an honorable man. He only had to look at me to judge me guilty. Running code. By what right does a wolf judge the lion? By what right? Like I said, the guy who literally got to the throne room first was Ned Stark. Man with the biggest stick up his ass about honor finds Jaime Lannister sitting on the throne with the Mad King dead at his feet. So, yeah.
And then there's Brienne's reaction. You can see the horror on her face mixed with shame and this deep growing empathy.
I mean, she has been ever since they met, she has been judging him to be the Kingslayer.
Like she does, this is where we truly start to understand Jaime. It's such a powerful turning point. But what really takes it to another level is going back to season 1 and rewatching that scene where Jaime talks about the Mad King's last words. Because even back then, you could see it in Jaime's eyes. There was something more to his story, something he wasn't saying.
What did the Mad King say when you stabbed him?
Oh yeah, this is the scene where they were talking about their first kills. Because after this, there was the war versus the Greyjoys, and I guess he hasn't proven himself yet. I mean, wait, has he? Wait, I might be mixing up my my stories here, but you know what? Can someone please put it down in the comments?
The back. I never asked.
He said the same thing he'd been saying for hours.
Burn them all.
Burn them all.
There
With
we
this
go.
context, that single tear running down Jaime's cheek as he remembers those words hits us even harder. Because in that moment, we finally get to see what they actually meant to him. And this is where Nikolaj-Coster-Waldau's performance becomes nothing short of a phenomenal. I mean, I've always thought he was a bit underrated, but here he shows us why he's one of the best actors on the show. This is the kind of performance that should be studied in acting classes.
First, I killed the pyromancer, and then when the king turned to flee, I drove my sword into his back.
Back, not belly.
Burn them all, he kept saying. Burn them all.
Now, I've got to say, though, knowing Jaime's backstory from the books makes this scene even more powerful and heartbreaking, because the trauma of killing the Mad King is deeply tied to who Jaime used to be. The show only hints at this, but in the books we find out that before joining the Kingsguard, he was an idealistic young man.
He was knighted in the battlefield, actually. He had a battlefield commission. One of his points of contention with Brienne of Tarth and one of his the nerves he touches when they were together is that you will never be a knight. You will never be like me.
Someone who wanted to be like Arthur Dayne and Gerald Hightower, but all of his ideals got shattered.
Again, a boy who only knew two things: swing his sword and love his sister.
The day he killed the Mad King. That's when the harsh reality hit him. The world wasn't just black and white, it was full of shades of gray, full of impossible choices. From then on, he became the Jaime we know, sarcastic and cynical, but deep down still hurting. And that's where the Kingslayer name came in. It became his shield, his way to protect himself from the judgment, from the pain of what he did.
My interpretation is that he's been trying to divest himself of that title by trying to be the number one in Westeros. Ergo, this is thing, his hard-on for competing. His hard-on for trying to get in that fight with Ned Stark, the number one swordsman in all of the realm. The supposed vanquisher of Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning.
But the truth is, Jaime never fully became that man. That's exactly why in the books he's often haunted by the other Kingsguard and even Prince Rhaegar. They were the heroes once he admired, the ones he feels he let down. They show up in his nightmares, lingering like ghosts and reminding him that he's an oathbreaker, a man without honor.
Was.
And as the scene goes on, we get to the ghost that probably haunts him the most. Ned Stark, the first man he faced him after killing the king.
Yeah, again, worst thing. You got caught with a smoking gun, literally.
I swear Ned Stark found me.
If this is true, why didn't you tell anyone?
Who would have
Why
believed
didn't
him?
you tell Lord Stark?
Stark. The Honorable Ned Stark
Honorable Ned
wanted
Stark.
to hear my side.
He wouldn't.
Judged me guilty the moment.
See, again, that conversation between him and, well, Ned. Like he said to him, it felt like justice. And then Ned's rebuttal was simple. Is that what you tell yourself at night?
He set eyes on me. By what right does the bull judge the lion?
What an amazing moment. This is where we truly understand that his feelings toward Ned Stark go way beyond simple resentment. There's actually something deeper here, something messy, conflicted.
He felt judged.
And way more human. Let me explain it this way. I just told you how Jaime is haunted by the ghosts of his past. Well, it's not a coincidence that the one haunts him the most is Ned Stark. Because with all his honor and principles, Ned isn't just a reminder of what Jaime could have been. He's a reflection of people like Arthur Dayne, those knights who live by the code Jaime.
Basically, Ned Stark represents what he wanted to be, ideally as a boy, as a lad.
He once believed in. And the thing is, Jaime never actually saw Arthur Dayne or Rhaegar Targaryen judging him. They were both dead before he killed the Mad King. So all those cold, accusing
and his hero simply judged him.
Looks in his nightmares weren't real. They were his own guilt staring back at him. But Ned's judgment was real. He was there.
Hurt.
He saw Jaime on the throne, sword in hand, and he made up his mind just right there. At that moment, Ned's judgment went beyond just one man's opinion. It became the embodiment of all the ideals Jaime had abandoned.
Yep.
All the honorable men who would have looked at him and seen nothing but a disgrace.
Sadness.
That's why his judgment cuts Jaime so deeply.
It hurt.
But that judgment was as infuriating as it was painful, because deep down, Jaime truly believed that he did the right thing by breaking his oath and killing the king. And yet Ned, who himself broke a different kind of oath.
It was simply a little bit too convenient for everyone. His father was at the gates, ransacking the city. Of course, logically, that, the son helped out his dad by, eliminating the competition at its head, which is the Mad King.
By fathering a bastard son, but was still seen as honorable, seemed like a huge injustice to Jaime. Just remember the scene between Catelyn and Jaime in season 2.
Do you know, I've never been with any woman but Cersei. So in my own way, I have more honor than poor old dead Ned.
As you see, Jaime's clearly comparing himself to Ned Stark here, trying to measure his own sense of honor against Ned's. And in doing so, he's kind of exposing all these complicated feelings he has about him. But the thing is, he never actually says any of this out loud, because at the end of the day, he's a Lannister. He grew up with his father drilling this idea into him. That
You know what? I've always wondered about every time Tywin makes a monologue, he's always working on game. He's always working on animals. Like here, he's skinning a deer, and then we see another scene when he was talking, when he exposes Grandmaster Pycelle. When he exposes to everyone, or to at least to the audience, that Pycelle was simply, acting the old doddering old fool. That he was fishing. He's always working on animals. This is supposed to represent something, but I guess since if you have a video, can someone please link it down in the comments, or at least put it down in the comments what this is supposed to represent. Why Tywin is almost always working on animals. He's like, he's skinning a deer. In the other one, he's fishing with Pycelle or something. But anyways,
Lannisters are lions, and lions don't care about what anyone else thinks. They're always above everyone else. But you see, Jaime never fully bought into that idea, because deep down he does care, and this contradiction is what torments
Especially
him.
with
That's
Ned
why when
Stark
Brienne
thinks.
asks him why he never explained himself, the answer hits us hard, because it's heavy with everything he's been carrying inside.
No one
And
listen.
that's where the deepest conflict in Jaime's heart lies. Because with that moment, we come to realize that Jaime is neither the reckless lion his father expects him to be, nor the infamous Kingslayer everyone believes him to be. He's actually a broken man, torn between these two identities, forced to kill his own ideals along with his king. As the scene ends, everything Jaime's been holding in for years hits him all at once. The heat of the bath, the weight of his past, it's too much, and he almost passes out. But maybe the most powerful moment of the scene comes right in the middle of all that vulnerability, when he says just one simple line while he's in Brienne's arms.
The Kingslayer!
Jaime. My name's Jaime.
In the books,
Poor
Jaime
man.
never says his name out loud, but the show adds this amazing touch and turns it into a plea for identity. For 17 years, he's been called the Kingslayer. That name has followed him everywhere, almost like people forgot he even had a real name. But here,
and
he's
ergo he tried so hard to divest himself of it.
trying to take his name back. In that moment, he's not putting on the mask of the Kingslayer. He's not hiding behind the Lannister name. He's not clinging to the honor
just
of the
Jaime.
Kingsguard. All he wants more than anything is to be seen simply as himself. And for the first time in what feels like forever, the real Jaime finally steps into the light.
That he does. That was awesome.
Thank you for watching, guys. So if you want me to check out other stories here on YouTube, please let me know in the comments. We upload on the weekends, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Also, check out our Twitch channel where you can watch me do this live. And please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do the whole notification button thing to help me out with the algo, and class dismissed.